The night sky over New London was alive with lights. Fireworks painted the heavens in red and gold. People danced in the streets, music echoed through the buildings, and laughter filled the air. It was Earth's Victory Day, 10 years since the end of the Galactic War, a war that had nearly wiped out humanity. Now the world celebrated peace, freedom, and survival, but far from the shining towers and glowing banners, a man named Eli Turner walked alone down a quiet road. He carried a small bag of tools, his work uniform still stained with oil and dust. He wasn't thinking about fireworks or flags. His mind was heavy, filled with memories he didn't want to remember. While others cheered, he just wanted silence. Eli worked as a maintenance technician at the old military hospital on the city's edge. The hospital was supposed to be closed, but many machines were still active. Life support pods, scanners, and old war tech that never got shut down. Eli's job was to check that nothing leaked or exploded. Nothing more. It was lonely work, but he liked it that way. He'd seen enough death in the war, and now he wanted peace. Back at home, his 10-year-old daughter Lila had begged him to come to the celebration. She wanted him to see the parade, the lights, the giant airships flying banners of victory. But Eli had promised her, "Tomorrow we'll celebrate. I just have one last shift tonight." He smiled when he said it. But deep inside, he knew tomorrow might never feel different, because something in his heart had broken during the war, something he never got back. Inside the hospital, the hallways were dark and cold. The walls still had the faded marks of war, old bloodstains, broken cables, and shattered glass told stories of what once happened here. Eli switched on his small flashlight and walked through the silence. He checked each machine one by one, listening to the soft hum of forgotten technology. Then he heard it, a sound that didn't belong. It wasn't the hiss of a leaking pipe or the buzz of a light. It was a soft, weak cry. At first, Eli thought it was a recording, maybe an old distress message still playing in the system. But the sound came again, fragile, scared, alive. He followed it down the corridor, toward the storage room at the end. The air smelled of rust and dust. He opened the door, shining his light into the darkness. And there, behind a broken medical pod, he saw something small curled up on the floor. It was breathing, slow, shaky breaths. Its skin was pale blue, and thin lines of silver ran along its arms like veins. Its eyes, large and glassy, blinked weakly when the light hit them. Eli froze, his breath catching in his throat. It wasn't human. He'd seen creatures like this only once before, during the war. Aliens, the same kind that had invaded Earth. The same kind he'd fought against to protect his people. Every instinct told him to call security, to report it before anyone found out. But as he watched, the small creature gasped for air, clutching its chest. It was dying. He stepped closer and noticed the shattered pod nearby. The machine that had once kept it alive was broken beyond repair. The creature's breathing was shallow, like it was drowning in the air around it. Eli looked down at it. It was no soldier, no monster. It was a child, maybe 6 or 7 years old in human age. Its small fingers trembled as it tried to lift a hand toward him. The gesture wasn't a threat, it was a plea. Eli's heart pounded. He remembered the orders from the war. No alien life should survive on Earth. Anyone found helping one would be arrested, maybe even executed. He could just walk away, pretend he saw nothing. That's what any normal man would do. But as he turned to leave, the sound came again, a soft whisper, "Help." That one word stopped him cold, his chest tightened, his eyes burning as he looked back. He saw not an enemy, but something helpless and afraid, something that reminded him of his own daughter when she cried during air raids. He knelt beside the small alien, feeling the heat radiating from its skin. He didn't understand why, but he couldn't walk away. "All right," he murmured softly. "You're going to be okay." He pulled off his jacket, wrapped the small creature carefully, and lifted it into his arms. Its body was light, fragile. He could feel its weak heartbeat against his chest. He carried it down the corridor, avoiding the cameras. Every step felt heavier, every sound sharper. If someone caught him now, he'd lose everything, his job, his freedom, maybe even his daughter. When he reached his truck, he placed the creature inside an old toolbox and covered it with cloth. He started the engine, the sound masking his pounding heart. The city outside was still celebrating. Fireworks exploded above him as he drove away. People cheered for victory, for peace. But Eli Turner didn't look at the lights. He kept his eyes on the dark road ahead. Because tonight, while the world celebrated life, he was trying to save one that wasn't even human. Eli Turner's house stood on the edge of New London, small, quiet, and half-forgotten. While the rest of the city still glowed with celebration lights, his home was dark and silent. Inside, he walked quickly down to the basement. Holding the small alien child close to his chest, the creature's breathing was uneven, its chest rising in short, painful gasps. Every sound of the night, the fireworks, the laughter, the music, felt like a reminder of how dangerous this choice was. He placed the child gently on an old mattress in the corner. The basement was cold, filled with dust and boxes, but it was the only place no one ever entered. Eli turned on a small lamp, its yellow light flickering weakly. For a moment, he just stared at the alien. Its skin shimmered faintly under the light. Tiny particles like stars glowed in its veins. It looked peaceful now, but its breathing was still shallow. He could tell. It was dying. He went upstairs and returned with his medical kit. It wasn't much, just old tools he'd kept from his army days. He cleaned its small wounds, checked its pulse, and measured its breath. The readings made his heart sink. The oxygen levels were too low. Earth's air was burning the creature's lungs from the inside. He sat down heavily on a wooden chair, running his hands through his hair. "What am I doing?" He whispered to himself. He wasn't a doctor, and he wasn't supposed to save an alien. If the authorities found out, they'd call it treason. But when he looked at the small creature again, wrapped in his jacket, he couldn't regret it. He'd lost too much in the war already. His wife, his peace, his sleep. He couldn't lose his humanity too. The sound of a door creaking made him jump. He turned fast, and there she was, Lila, standing at the top of the basement stairs. Her small hand holding the railing, her eyes wide with confusion. "Dad? What's that?" she asked softly. Eli froze, his mind racing for an answer. "Just something I found at work," he said quickly, but his tone betrayed the truth. Lila took a slow step down, curious and unafraid. When she reached the light, she saw the creature's face and gasped. "It's an alien," she whispered, but not in fear, I'm in wonder. Eli expected her to scream or run. Instead, she knelt beside the small alien, studying it closely. "It's just a kid," she said quietly, "like me." Eli swallowed hard. Unsure what to say. "Yes," he admitted, "but it's hurt. And it can't breathe our air." Lila looked up, her eyes bright with something he hadn't seen in years. Compassion. "Can we help it?" she asked. Eli hesitated, then nodded slowly. "We can try," he said. For the next few hours, they worked together in silence. Eli searched his old war boxes, pulling out wires, filters, and oxygen masks. Lila fetched water and blankets, her small hands trembling but determined. They built a small breathing chamber using a plastic crate and an old air purifier. Eli modified the purifier, adjusting the chemical filters to reduce oxygen levels. He hoped it would give the creature a chance. When he turned it on, the soft hum filled the basement. He placed the small alien inside, and within minutes, its breathing steadied. Lila smiled, her eyes shining with relief. "It's working," she whispered. Eli nodded, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time, hope. They spent the rest of the night watching the creature sleep. Lila brought her drawing pad and began sketching it. She drew its glowing veins and soft blue skin, calling it Neru. "Why that name?" Eli asked quietly. "It sounds kind," she replied simply. Eli smiled faintly, realizing she was right. But peace didn't last long. The next morning, while Eli made breakfast, the television showed breaking news. "Authorities have detected unknown life signatures near Sector 12, the reporter said. "Galactic patrol drones are being sent to locate a missing alien survivor." Eli froze. The spoon falling from his hand, Sector 12. That was where he worked. He turned the volume down fast. Lila looked at him, her face pale. "They're looking for it, aren't they?" she asked. Eli nodded slowly. "We have to be careful, Lila," he said firmly. "No one can know about Neru." She nodded back, her expression serious beyond her years. "I won't tell anyone," she promised. That night, as the city lights dimmed, Eli sat in the basement again, watching Neru sleep inside the breathing box. He noticed how the creature's small chest rose and fell gently, its color returning. But he also noticed something strange. Faint blinking lights on its skin. Like signals, he frowned, unsure if it was natural or a form of communication. If it was a signal, someone might already be tracking it. Upstairs, Lila slept peacefully, unaware of the danger outside. But Eli couldn't sleep. He stayed awake, listening to the distant sound of drones passing through the neighborhood. Every shadow outside the window made his heart race. He knew they wouldn't stop searching, and if they found Nehru, they'd take it away, or worse. As dawn crept through the small window, Eli whispered to himself, "I don't know how long I can keep you safe, little one." The alien shifted slightly, its tiny hand resting against the glass. Eli placed his hand on the other side in that silent moment. A human and an alien shared something beyond fear, a fragile trust. Outside, the patrol drones hummed through the sky, hunting for life, but deep beneath the house, in a dark basement, a secret heart of kindness had begun to beat. Morning came with a strange silence over New London. The fireworks were gone, the streets empty, and the sky filled with drones. Their soft hums echoed like whispers of danger. Every household had been ordered to keep windows closed and devices scanned. The government said it was a small safety check, but everyone knew it was more. Eli Turner stood by his window, pretending to sip coffee, but his eyes were fixed on the sky, watching the drones drift past like vultures. His stomach tightened every time one paused near his street. Inside his basement, hidden under metal panels and soundproof cloth, the alien child slept quietly. It had been 3 days since he brought Nehru home, and every night had felt like a stolen heartbeat. Lila sat at the kitchen table, tracing shapes on her toast with a spoon. She looked calm, but her eyes flicked to the basement door every few seconds. She whispered, "Dad, what if they come here?" Eli forced a smile. "They won't, sweetheart," he said softly. But his hands trembled slightly as he turned the page of his work report. The scanner on the counter beeped, a random neighborhood check. Eli's heart jumped. He quickly turned it off before it detected anything strange. He knew they were closing in. Downstairs, Nehru woke with a quiet cough. Its voice was weak but clearer than before. Eli, it murmured. He rushed down the stairs and knelt beside the breathing box. "I'm here," he said softly. The alien blinked slowly, its silver veins pulsing like faint light. "Bad sky," Nehru whispered. "They look for me." Eli froze. "How do you know that?" The child pressed a small hand against the glass. "Signal." "I feel them," it said in broken English. Eli realized it. The creature wasn't just sensing danger. It was connected to it, maybe through its biology, or through the same signals the drones were using. If that was true, hiding would soon become impossible. He switched off all power in the basement. Unplugging every cable, the air purifier stayed on, running on a separate battery pack. He couldn't risk any more energy readings escaping the house. Later that day, he went to the hardware store. He needed spare filters and some copper wire. But the streets felt wrong. Soldiers were everywhere, scanning doors, checking ID chips, watching faces. As he walked past a checkpoint, one of them stopped him. "Name?" the officer asked. "Eli Turner," he replied calmly, handing over his work badge. The soldier scanned it, then stared at him for a moment too long. "You work near Sector 12 Hospital?" "Yes," Eli said, keeping his voice steady. "Strange signals came from there recently," the soldier said. "If you notice anything, report it." Eli nodded. "Of course." But inside, his heart raced. When he reached home, Lila was waiting at the door. "They came here," she whispered, her voice shaking. "What?" "2 soldiers. They said they were checking for energy leaks," she said. Eli glanced toward the basement, his blood turning cold. "Did they go downstairs?" She shook her head. "I told them it's flooded from the old pipes." Eli exhaled slowly, relief and fear mixing in his chest. "You did good, Lila," he whispered, pulling her into a hug. That night, rain fell hard. The city lights reflected on the wet streets like broken glass. Eli sat by Nehru's side, tightening bolts on the breathing chamber. The alien's small eyes followed his hands with curiosity. "You help," it said quietly. Eli nodded. "That's what humans do." Nehru tilted its head. "Humans. Kind?" He paused, thinking of the war, the soldiers, the fear. "Some are," he said softly, "but kindness is rare now." The alien blinked, processing the words slowly. "Then, you are rare," it said. Eli laughed quietly, though his eyes glistened with tears, but peace shattered when the scanner on his wrist beeped. He checked the small screen, unauthorized signal detected nearby. He turned to Nehru, whose veins were glowing brighter than before. The signal wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from the alien itself, Eli cursed under his breath. You're broadcasting. He grabbed a metal blanket and wrapped it around the chamber to block the signal. But it was too late outside the window. A drone paused mid-air, its red light focusing on the house. Lila, he called, basement now. She ran down the stairs just as the drone's light flickered through the window. Eli shut the curtains, heart pounding. Above them, a deep rumbling filled the air. A patrol ship. They found us, Lila whispered. Tears in her eyes, Eli grabbed her shoulders. Listen to me. If they come in, hide under the workbench. Don't make a sound. But what about Neru? I'll protect both of you, he said. Footsteps echoed outside, boots splashing in the rain. Eli turned off every light, the only glow coming from the faint silver veins inside the box. The knocking started. 3 loud bangs on the door. Open up, security inspection. Eli's breath caught. He knew this was the end of hiding. But then he heard a faint hum from the chamber. Neru was awake again, eyes glowing softly. The air around it shimmered like heat. Before Eli could react, a wave of faint energy spread through the basement. All lights in the house flickered and died. Outside, the soldiers' scanners froze, their systems glitching. Eli stared in shock. The child had somehow disabled their tech. Neru looked at him weakly. Safe. For now, it whispered. Eli exhaled shakily. Pulling Lila close, for a brief moment the house was silent again. But he knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The hunt had started, and soon, the entire galaxy might come searching for the little life he chose to protect. The rain didn't stop for 3 days. The city was drowned in gray clouds and sirens. Drones still searched the streets. But Eli's house remained dark and silent. No signals, no sound, no light. Only the quiet rhythm of breathing coming from the basement. Eli hadn't slept since the night the patrol came. Every creak of the floor made his heart jump. But the only thing that mattered now was the child. Neru's condition was getting worse. Its chest rose and fell with effort. Every breath sounded painful. The air filter was breaking down, and the backup battery was almost dead. He knew it couldn't last much longer. He sat beside the small alien, watching its thin blue skin flicker like fading light. He whispered, "You've made it this far, little one. You can't give up now." Neru opened its eyes weakly. "Hard to breathe," it said. Eli felt helpless, his hands shaking as he checked the tubes and sensors. He had tried everything, adjusting oxygen, lowering temperature using water filters. Nothing worked. Human lungs were made for this world, but Neru's lungs were made for another. If he didn't find a way soon, the child would die. That night, as Lila slept upstairs, Eli sat at his old desk covered with tools. Blueprints from his army days lay scattered everywhere. They were designs for combat gear, drones, and biotech units he once helped build. He hated those memories, but now, among the old papers, something caught his eye. A folded blueprint labeled Project Helios, Adaptive Lung Prototype. He remembered it. A failed experiment meant to help soldiers breathe in toxic zones. The design had been too unstable, but maybe, with changes, it could work for Neru. Eli took a deep breath. "All right," he muttered. "Let's build something that's never been built before." He cleared the table, set up his old tools, and began to work. The hum of machines replaced the silence of fear. He cut, welded, shaped, and measured for hours. His hands were steady again, guided not by orders but by purpose. Every spark of his tools felt like hope coming alive. By morning, Lila found him still working, his eyes red but determined. "Dad, you didn't sleep again," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Sleep is for people who aren't saving lives." She looked at the strange metal frame on the table. "What is it?" He wiped sweat from his forehead. "Artificial lungs, Lila, ones that can change the air inside them." Her eyes widened. "For Neru?" He nodded. "For Neru." Together they searched the garage for parts in the old air filters, nanofiber cloth, and small energy cells from her toy drones. They built in silence, their movements fast and focused. Lila helped stitch the soft lining that would connect to Neru's skin. She hummed quietly while she worked, a sound that made the basement feel warm again. Sometimes Neru would wake and watch them. Blinking slowly, it didn't speak much now. But when it did, it always said the same thing. "Thank you." Hours turned into days, and the house smelled of metal and ozone. Eli's hands were covered in small burns, his tools nearly out of charge, but he didn't stop. He remembered the last time he'd built something during the war. A weapon. Now he was building something to heal, and that made all the difference. One night, as thunder rumbled outside, Eli finally tightened the last screw. The device looked fragile. A small metallic chest piece shaped to fit the alien's body. It had filters, air sensors, and a core powered by Lila's mini drone battery. He stared at it for a long moment. Afraid to hope, Lila whispered, "Will it work?" He sighed. "I don't know, but it's the best I can give." He knelt beside Nehru, whose breathing had become shallow and slow. The small alien's skin flickered weakly. "Hey," Eli said softly. "I've got something for you." Nehru opened its eyes. Barely conscious, he carefully attached the device to its chest, connecting small tubes and pressing the core button. The machine hummed softly, glowing blue, for a few seconds. Nothing happened, then Nehru's chest lifted, and it took a long, deep breath. Its eyes widened, a soft light glowing behind them. Air flowed smoothly through the device, turning the poisonous oxygen into something it could breathe. Lila gasped, "It's working." Eli felt tears rise to his eyes. He laughed, a sound that felt strange after so long. "Yes, it's working," he said. Voice shaking for the first time, Nehru sat up on its own. Its small fingers touched the device, feeling the faint vibration. "Warm," it said quietly. "Feels like home." Eli looked at it, speechless. He hadn't just saved its life, he had given it back the breath it lost. In that moment, all the pain of the past war faded for him. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a father saving a child, no matter what species it was. But the peace didn't last. Outside, the city alarms began to wail again. Eli rushed upstairs and turned on the small news screen. The headline flashed red. "Unidentified energy signature detected in lower sector. Patrols deployed." He froze. That energy signature could only mean one thing: the new device. Lila's face went pale. "Dad, they found us again." Eli clenched his fists, his heart pounding. He looked toward the basement, where the alien child now breathed freely for the first time. He whispered, "Then we run before they arrive." The night was colder than usual. A thick fog rolled through the streets of New London, hiding everything in a quiet blur. Eli Turner sat by the basement stairs, his heart heavy, listening to the faint hum of the artificial lungs below. Nehru was breathing peacefully for the first time, the blue light of the device glowing softly in the dark. It was a small miracle in a world that had forgotten kindness. Lila sat beside her father, her sketchbook open on her lap. She was drawing again. This time she sketched Nehru sitting under a bright sky, smiling. "When this is over," she said softly, "maybe we can take Nehru outside." Eli smiled sadly. "Maybe one day, when the world learns not to fear what it doesn't understand." He wanted to believe it, but deep down, he knew they were running out of time. The alarms had stopped outside, but that didn't mean safety. The patrols were still watching, drones still scanning every day. The search grid grew smaller, and Eli knew, eventually someone would find them. That someone turned out to be closer than he ever imagined. Late that evening, there was a knock at the door. Eli froze, exchanging a nervous look with Lila. Then came a familiar voice, deep and steady. "Eli, it's Grant, open up." Eli's chest tightened. Major Grant, his old friend, his commander from the war, the man who had once saved his life. He hadn't seen Grant in years, not since the battlefield turned to ash. He opened the door slowly. Grant stood there in his dark uniform, raindrops glistening on his coat. He smiled faintly, but his eyes were sharp, scanning everything. "Still fixing machines, huh?" Grant said, stepping inside. Eli forced a small laugh. Old habits die hard. They sat at the kitchen table, the air thick with unspoken words. Grant looked tired, older, but there was something else in his gaze, suspicion. "You live far from the city," Grant said quietly. "Strange place to hide." Eli's pulse quickened. "Hide? I'm not hiding, just living quietly with my daughter." Grant leaned back. "There have been reports of unusual energy signals in this sector." Eli tried to sound calm. "I heard about it. Probably just faulty equipment." Grant nodded slowly. Then his eyes drifted toward the basement door. "Still keeping your old lab down there?" Eli's hand tightened around his cup. "Yes, just some tools and junk," he said. Grant didn't reply, but a faint smile appeared on his lips, the kind that didn't reach the eyes. "I always knew you had a big heart," he said softly. maybe too big for your own good. When he left, Eli watched him walk into the fog. He felt a chill that wasn't from the cold. Lila came to his side. Dad, is he going to tell them? Eli hesitated. I don't know, but we have to be ready. That night, he packed emergency bags, food, data chips, and the portable oxygen generator. He planned escape routes in his head, every street, every tunnel. He was ready for anything except what came next. At dawn, the world erupted. A loud bang shattered the morning silence. The front door burst open. Soldiers stormed in shouting orders. Move! Sector sweep! Detain all residents! Eli grabbed Lila's hand, pulling her toward the basement. But the soldiers were faster, flooding the house like a tide. Eli Turner, a voice boomed. Major Grant standing at the door. Eyes filled with conflict, Eli froze, betrayal slicing through him like a knife. You told them, Eli whispered, his voice breaking. Grant looked away. You left me no choice, he said quietly. You're protecting an alien life form, and it's against every law we fought for, Lila screamed. It's not dangerous. The soldiers pushed past her, tearing open the basement door. They surrounded the chamber, weapons drawn inside. Nehru looked up weakly, frightened but calm. The soft hum of its artificial lungs filled the silence. Grant stepped forward, his hand shaking slightly. My God, he whispered, seeing the small creature. It's just a child, Eli said, stepping between them. Grant's face softened for a second, but the soldiers didn't hesitate. They grabbed Eli, forcing him to his knees. Take it, Grant ordered, his voice hollow. Headquarters wants it alive, Lila cried out, trying to reach Nehru, but two soldiers held her back. Dad! She screamed. Eli looked at her, tears in his eyes. It's okay, sweetheart, he whispered. Don't be afraid. The soldiers lifted the chamber, sealing it in a containment shell. Nehru's glowing eyes met Eli's one last time. Eli, don't let them take me. It pleaded weakly. But there was nothing he could do. As they dragged him outside, Grant walked beside him. Eli turned to him with pain in his eyes. You were my brother, he said. Voice trembling, Grant didn't meet his gaze. You made me choose between friendship and duty. Eli shook his head. No, I made you choose between fear and humanity. For a moment, Grant froze, his face pale, his eyes full of regret. But the soldiers pushed Eli forward and the door of the truck slammed shut behind him. As the convoy drove away, Lila stood in the rain, her small hands clenched into fists. Tears streamed down her face, but behind them burned something stronger, resolve. She looked toward the direction they took her father and Nehru and whispered, I'm coming for you. The night swallowed the sound of the engines. The city returned to silence. But in that silence, something had changed. A promise was made. A child's heart ready to fight a world built on fear. The cell was cold and quiet. Eli Turner sat on the metal bench, his hands chained, his clothes wet from the rain. The air smelled like iron and disinfectant. He could still hear Nehru's faint voice echoing in his head. The last words before they took it away. He closed his eyes, whispering to himself, hold on. Little one. Outside the reinforced glass, two guards talked in low voices. HQ says they're moving the alien to the upper base tomorrow, one said. The human's being processed tonight, the other replied. Eli's stomach tightened. He didn't know what processed meant, but he knew it wasn't good. He had to get out, but there was no way. No tools, no chance, until he remembered. Lila. Somewhere out there, his daughter was free. And if there was one thing Eli Turner believed in, it was that his little girl never gave up. That same night, in the shadows of New London, Lila Turner was already moving. She wore her father's old jacket and carried a backpack full of small tools. Rain poured around her, soaking her hair, but she didn't care. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with fierce determination. She knew where they had taken her father. The military base near the river. She had seen it once when he worked there years ago. And she remembered every turn, every hidden path. She reached the fence that surrounded the compound. The lights above buzzed and flickered. Scanning the wet ground, she crouched low, pulling out a small device, something her father had built long ago, a pocket jammer. She clicked it on, and for 10 seconds the cameras froze. That was all she needed. She crawled through a drainage tunnel, mud clinging to her arms and knees. When she emerged inside the base, her heart raced. She could hear voices, footsteps, the metallic sound of soldiers marching. She hid behind crates, breathing quietly, From there, she saw it, a small transport pod. Inside, through the glass, was Neru lying weakly. The artificial lungs were still glowing, but faintly a guard stood nearby. Watching the readings on a tablet, Lila's eyes filled with tears. "Hang on, Neru," she whispered. "I'm here." She waited for the guard to step away, then slipped closer. Her hands shook as she used a stolen ID chip to unlock the panel. The lock blinked green. She opened the door, and Neru blinked in confusion. "Lila." It whispered, its voice trembling. "Shh," she said. "We're getting out of here." She helped it sit up, covering the glowing device with her jacket. But before they could move, alarms blared. The cameras had rebooted, and someone had spotted her in the control room. Grant slammed his hand on the desk. "Lock down the base," he shouted. He stared at the security feed. The sight of a small girl helping the alien escape froze his breath. "Lila Turner," he muttered for a brief moment. Guilt flashed in his eyes. He turned to the guard beside him. "Find her, but don't hurt her." Back in the cell block, Eli heard the alarms too. He stood up, trying to see through the small window. Guards ran past shouting orders. Something was happening. Something big. He felt a spark of hope in his chest. Then the door beeped. It slid open, and standing there was Major Grant, his face hard and unreadable. Eli stared at him. "What's going on?" Grant hesitated. "Your daughter. She's here." Eli's heart stopped. "What?" Grant unlocked his cuffs. "If we don't move fast, she'll be caught." Eli didn't wait for answers. He pushed past Grant. "Where is she?" Grant sighed. "Follow me." In the corridor, the lights flickered red. Sirens wailed as soldiers ran toward the cargo wing. Eli and Grant moved through the chaos like shadows. When they reached the hangar, Eli saw her, Lila, running through the open gate with Neru in her arms. "Lila!" he shouted. She turned, tears of relief in her eyes. "Dad!" He ran to her, and for a moment the world stopped. Father and daughter reunited under flashing red lights, but there was no time to breathe. The sound of engines roared behind them. Drones armed and ready. Grant raised his weapon and fired at the control panel, sparks flying. "Go!" he yelled. "There's a maintenance tunnel behind the hangar." Eli looked at him in shock. "Why are you helping us?" Grant lowered his weapon, his eyes heavy. "Because you were right," he said. "I chose fear once, but not again." Eli grabbed Lila's hand, helping Neru stand. They ran through the tunnel as alarms echoed above them. The floor trembled under their feet as security doors slammed shut behind. The tunnel led to the riverbank, dark and silent under the moon. Eli pulled the old boat cover aside, a hidden escape pod from his smuggling days. He opened the hatch and helped Lila and Neru climb in. Grant appeared at the entrance, breathing hard. "You'll have 10 minutes before they track you," he said. Eli nodded. "Grant, thank you." The major gave a sad smile. "Keep that child safe." The pod door sealed, engines humming quietly. As they drifted away into the misty water, Eli looked back one last time. He saw Grant standing at the tunnel's edge, his figure fading in the fog. Moments later, searchlights swept across the river. "Dad, are we going to be okay?" Lila asked softly. Eli placed a hand on her shoulder. "As long as we're together," he said, "we'll find a way." Neru leaned weakly against the window, watching the city lights disappear behind them. Its voice was faint but calm. "Free," it whispered. "We are free." Eli looked at the stars above, the same stars he once fought beneath. Now they didn't look like enemies. They looked like home. The night was quiet again. The rain had stopped, and the stars were sharp and clear in the dark sky. The small escape pod drifted along the wide river, hidden beneath the fog. Inside, Eli, Lila, and Neru sat close together, their faces pale under the cold blue light of the control panel. The engine made a soft hum, barely enough to disturb the silence. Eli checked the power levels. Only 30% left. They couldn't go much farther. He looked at Lila, who was holding Neru's hand gently. The small alien's breathing was weak again, the glow in its veins fading. The artificial lungs were working, but something was wrong. It wasn't just the air anymore. It was exhaustion. Neru had lost too much energy. Lila brushed its small forehead, whispering, "We're almost safe, okay? Just hold on." Neru smiled weakly, its voice thin like wind. "Safe? No safe on Earth." Eli frowned. "Don't say that," he said softly. "We'll find somewhere quiet. Somewhere no one will hurt you. But Neru's glowing eyes looked at him sadly. My people, far away, they search for me. Eli froze. Search? How do you know? Neru touched its chest where the lungs glowed faintly. Signal. Always calling. Eli looked through the glass window of the pod. Above them the stars flickered, but one of them seemed to move differently. It wasn't twinkling, it was growing brighter. He narrowed his eyes. That's not a star, he whispered. The light grew larger, spreading like a golden tear across the night sky. Lila gasped. Dad! It's coming closer, within seconds. The air trembled and the river rippled violently. The clouds above split open, revealing a massive ship descending silently. Its surface shimmered like liquid glass, bending the starlight around it. The escape pod rocked under the force of its energy waves. Eli held Lila close, shielding her as the ship hovered above them. For a moment, everything was still. Then a beam of soft light reached down, wrapping the pod in a warm golden glow. Neru's body reacted instantly, its veins brightened. The glow spreading through its skin. Lila gasped. It's healing. Eli stared speechless. Neru opened its eyes wide for the first time in days. They found me, it whispered, tears, or something like tears, glistening on its cheeks. The beam lifted them slowly toward the ship. Eli's heart pounded. Hold on, he said, gripping Lila's hand tightly. The pod shook once, then stopped, weightless in midair. The next moment, they were inside. The interior was silent and luminous. Walls that shimmered like starlight, air that smelled clean and electric. Tall figures appeared from the shadows, beings with smooth silver skin and bright, shifting eyes. They moved gracefully, their steps soundless. Eli instinctively moved in front of Lila, protective. One of the aliens raised a hand, not in threat, but in peace. We mean no harm, a calm voice echoed directly in their minds. Eli swallowed hard. You speak English? Not words, the being replied. Thoughts. They looked at Neru, who was now standing with shaky legs. One of the beings knelt and touched the child's shoulder. The glow from their contact filled the room with a soft pulse. The being's expression changed. Sorrow, then gratitude. This human saved you, the voice said to Neru. Neru nodded slowly. He saved my life. The alien turned its gaze to Eli and Lila. Its voice was like wind and music together. Humans once fought us, it said gently, but this one showed something greater than war. Eli stood silent, unsure what to say. He wasn't looking for thanks. He just wanted the child to live. Lila stepped forward, her small voice trembling. Will you hurt us? The being shook its head. No, little one. You gave back what we thought your kind had lost. Kindness. Neru turned toward Eli and Lila. Its voice was soft but filled with light. You are my family, it said. Eli felt a lump in his throat. He placed a hand on the child's shoulder, smiling faintly. And you'll always be ours, he said. The taller alien raised a hand. A beam of light shimmered, forming a small sphere, glowing with symbols Eli couldn't read. This will protect you, the being said, placing it gently in Eli's hands. When your world is ready, this light will guide us back in peace. Eli looked at it. Feeling warmth spread through his chest, he nodded. I'll keep it safe. The ship began to hum again. Energy gathering beneath it, Neru stepped back toward its people, its eyes never leaving Eli and Lila. Goodbye, Dad, it whispered. Lila ran forward, tears in her eyes, and hugged the small alien tightly. Goodbye, Neru, she said. Don't forget us. I never will, Neru replied, its voice glowing with emotion. A moment later, the child stepped into the circle of light. The beam brightened, and then, in a flash of gold, they were gone. The massive ship rose silently into the night sky. Eli and Lila watched from the riverbank. The ship became a small star again, and then vanished among the constellations. Lila wiped her tears and whispered, Do you think we'll ever see them again? Eli smiled, looking at the glowing sphere in his hand. Maybe one day, he said softly, when the galaxy learns what it means to be human again. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, father and daughter stood side by side. The world behind them was broken and fearful, but above them, somewhere beyond the stars, kindness had found its voice again. And that voice carried the name of one man who chose compassion over celebration, Eli Turner, the human who saved an alien life and reminded the universe what mercy truly meant.